Welcome to the Mike on Much podcast. I'm your host, Mike Veerman. I'm here with my friend and trusted producer, Max Kerman, as well as our pop culture aficionado, Shane Cunningham. Internerca is not here. Long vacation.
Yeah, first time in British Columbia for her.
Living it up.
Yeah.
Good for her.
Mm-hmm. You seem kind of out of it right now, Shane.
I'm so tired.
You know what you remind me of? You remind me of me on moving day. Because I was so depressed because it was just taking up my time, and it was something that I had no interest in doing. Not to say you have no interest in doing it, but the day we finished moving, I dropped Lauren off at her parents' house, and I was like really tired. And I just popped.
Right when you're like, oh, I work here, but I'm a musician. I really think my songs are good.
And you like that? She says, "I've never seen Max look so sad and tired and depressed."
Yeah,
and that's like what you look like right now.
Boxes and stuff. It gets into your pores.
Mm-hmm.
And then I have to go to Vegas tomorrow.
Why are you going to Vegas? Mom convention?
Just vacation.
What? That doesn't make it. I don't believe you.
I swear, we're bringing the baby and everything.
Just the three of you guys?
No. My father-in-law is going to kind of babysit for us also. So at nighttime we can party.
Yeah, it's a tough life, man.
But no, it's like I'm missing a premiere to this movie that I wanted to see on Monday. There's the Safdie brothers. They did the movie Good Time. You know that with Robert Pattinson.
The Nut scored us premiere tickets to the new Adam Sandler dramatic film that could be Oscar bait. We don't know.
But he told me it was Tuesday originally, which I could have made. But now it's Monday. Yeah. So I'm gonna Adam Sandler is a big idol of mine. He was gonna be there. I love the Safdie brothers. So I'm a little down,
you sound like shit too.
I know.
You look like shit. You sound like shit.
I know that.
You're really
I'm
not
very
bringing
depressed.
Any good energy to this podcast.
Yeah.
That's okay.
We'll pip it up.
We'll get through it.
Pip it up, pep it up.
Pep it up.
Pep it up. We'll find it. So a couple things going on. Have you recovered yet from moving day, Max?
Yeah, I'm in a much better space.
I feel like you are.
Yeah, I feel way better now.
And Shane, do you think that you'll be able to rally? I know it's very difficult that you're about to fly to Vegas and have a great vacation with a built-in babysitter. And
now you guys are going to some big TIFF party tonight.
So yes, Shane, that's a good way to start it. TIFF is happening in the city right now. It's everywhere. You cannot miss it. It's a pretty cool festival. I actually this is classic me, like Danica always kills me on this because it's like, I know TIFF is coming. We all know TIFF's going to happen in September, whatever. It's like people get their tickets. They start working their angles. I don't think about it. And then all of a sudden it's here. And I'm like, and people are like, oh, I'm going to this thing and I'm going to that thing. And I'm like, oh yeah, I like things. So I just start sending texts to people like the Nut or my friend, our friend Yorgo, who is a projectionist. And I'm just like, hey, if any tickets happen to pop up, I live in the neighborhood. I live by all the theaters. I love movies. They usually play after my kid's gone to sleep, so just let me know. And then luckily, through the good graces of our friends, people are like, hey, if you want to do this, if you want to do that. So things have been popping up.
Yeah, I think if you were just had a different life, but lived in Mississauga and just had a normal job, but loved movies the same, you'd go out of your way to be making a schedule of all the TIFF movies you do. Yeah. You know, my dad was one of the original TIFF moviegoers.
Like a member. He signed up?
Yeah, and he doesn't go that much anymore, but he'd go to 3 or 4 movies a day. He'd basically book off work. And this was I remember as a kid, this week, in the week in September, he'd just not be around. He'd be leaving the house at 9 a.m. to go to the movies all day.
That's the dream, man.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Well, Mike also stole my premiere tickets. So now he's going.
It's true.
So he's in a dilemma. Now he has to find 2 other people to bring with him. So if you want to see the Safdie Brothers movie...
get in line with all the other Mike fans. Yeah.
Well, this is exactly what happened. So the Nut, when I was like, hey, if anything happens, he goes, Sandler premiere, Tuesday night, me, you, Shane. I'm like, sweet. I sent him that gif of James Brown doing the splits. I'm like, I fucking love movies. I love Sandler. Let's do this. All excited. Later that night, I'm thinking, good crew, me, Shaney, the Nut. Something's going to happen where we're going to have a story for the pod. Yeah. So regardless of the movie, it's just going to be a fun night. And then we got the news. Sorry, guys, I screwed up. It's a Monday night, not a Tuesday night. And I felt very bad for Shane. But then the Nut can't go. So then the Nut goes, actually, Mike, you're just going to end up with 3 premiere tickets.
So a guy who knew nothing about this movie, really.
I sent you the trailer.
Well, you knew it existed. You didn't know anything about the premiere.
I did not care
Today
enough.
I informed you that Adam Sandler will probably be there.
I didn't know that either.
Oh, he will? Cool. I like Adam Sandler.
It was pretty much exactly bang on.
But I have a request of you guys.
Hit me.
You know, Nick and I are part owners in this bar called Odds in downtown Hamilton. I mentioned on a previous episode. And we just got some merch. And what we want is... We're not selling the merch quite yet, or maybe there'll be a few items for sale, like a baseball hat and a T-shirt.
I'll wear it.
That they'll be available at the bar. But we want some influencers to wear the odd shirt.
I told you I'd wear it.
Yeah, so that's what I'm saying. Maybe today's group shot for the pod.
Oh, I get to keep it?
And you get to keep it.
Oh, that's awesome.
But you have to wear it, though.
Oh, I'll wear it all the time.
Good.
Can I have one for my influencer wife?
Yeah, definitely. She's got lots of followers.
They'll wear them in Vegas
Yeah.
this weekend.
So it's TIFF. There's a lot of celebrities in town. I heard Sean Paul is going to be at the E1 party, or at least he confirmed on the RSVP.
Give me the light.
Give me the light, past the road. Yeah.
Really?
So he might be there.
Well,
but Shane, you ran into a couple celebrities the other day as well.
I might have misrepresented myself a little bit. So, so what I said was I had passed Shawn Mendes and Camila Cabello.
Former podcast.
Yeah.
You're in a photo with her somewhere.
Yeah, I'm on video with her. I asked her a question before.
That's true.
But
Thank God you didn't say her name.
But I was walking out of a Starbucks, and then everyone's like, "Hey, that's Shawn Mendes." Oh my God, look, Shawn Mendes is with Camilla. And I was like, "What the?" And I couldn't. It's like you ever like sneeze and like the snot comes out, but you don't know where the snot is.
You're worried it's like, is it on my shoulder?
But you know
or
it's somewhere on you that's visible, but you need like to get to a mirror. So it was like that where literally everyone was creating a scene like, oh my God. And like there was like this wave of people noticing them, but I couldn't see them. And I was like, maybe I'm just hearing things. And then I look at my phone, and then someone on my Instagram had a video of somewhere I just was.
Yeah.
Say, being like Camilla and Shawn. So I was like, oh my God, I just passed them. But I did not actually see them.
Would it be awesome if you were like, remember me? That question I asked you?
Yeah, it would have been cool, yeah.
Hey, I think we've talked about this before. You know, there's some unattainable celebrities out there that in your mind, you just think you're like, yeah, they'd probably like me. I have a pretty good chance. You know, like, even though it makes no sense whatsoever. And then there's other unattainable celebrities out there that you're like, nah, I'd have no chance with them. I feel like with Camila Cabello, because she liked leather jackets, she actually tweeted it like a couple of years ago when she was in town. She heard Leather Jacket playing out of some speaker outside of a store or something. She's like, oh, I like this song. And we got like a bunch of retweets from her fans. And I feel like because she's so nice and endearing, I'd be like, yeah. And she also likes Canadian guys. So, I don't know.
I'm like that all the time. Like Tessa Virtue walked in here the other day. I was like, and you know I have the theory that only like hotter women like me.
We learned that on the last episode.
I said it after we finished recording, but I've tried to connect with average looking women, but they don't like me. But so when Tessa Virtue came in, I was like, uh-oh, she likes me. I was like I was telling Mike, afterwards, I was like, this is weird.
So I'm going to have to turn another one down.
Yeah.
It's tough being
But it honestly, I know it sounds crazy, but like you just told your Camilla thing, so I'm feeling inclined to tell it too.
Sure.
Obviously, you are a celebrity yourself, so it's a little bit different.
Compared to her, but yeah.
But I would say the disparity is kind of similar between Tessa and me and you and Camilla. I would say
yeah, fair enough.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
The gap is similar.
The gap,
yeah. But I just, anyway, I can relate to you, Max. But I was going to ask about hall passes. What do you do if your hall pass shows up at this party tonight?
Oh. Do you guys have hall passes with your partners?
No. Do you have a hall pass?
No, Alex wouldn't have it.
Yeah.
Because she has the theory like you could actually get them. Like she's delusional. She thinks,
well, I mean, she's not wrong the way you describe everything. You say like every hot girl seems to like
but
you. So I'd be worried about Alex.
But I know I'm delusional too. Although I believe my delusions, I also acknowledge that I am delusional.
Sure.
Yeah.
Let's get to some serious topics.
But why avoid the hall pass question?
I think we've only talked about it when it comes to like Lawrence hall passes. I haven't really thrown up.
But
my
you
hall
being a
passes.
quasi celeb and a big celeb in Canada,
Quasi's insulting. How dare you?
By the way, I remember I told a story about getting a teenager to weed my front lawn.
Yes.
Yeah.
She listens to the podcast.
We know
Really?
she's been all over Twitter.
Yeah. So we retweeted that. So I thought it was kind of funny. Anyway, carry on.
So you're a celeb.
Thank you.
Does that impede Lauren from approving hall passes?
What do you mean impede? Like,
Does it stop her from wanting you to have a hall pass?
Oh, probably.
Because in theory, it's attainable for you.
Yeah. I suppose so.
Like, say your hall pass was Sheryl Crow. It's not out of the realm of possibility that you could get a date with Sheryl Crow.
Yeah, I just don't broach the subject, to be honest. I think it's not worth it.
It's probably a good stay away.
Yeah. But she can be like, I'm going to do Leo if I...
Go forth. Come back with tails. Enjoy your life.
Is that an expression?
What?
Go forth, come back with tails.
I put the two together. They're both, no.
Yeah.
I've never heard it before.
Well, I liked it.
Okay.
All right, let's get to
Feel
it.
free to use it.
Thanks.
All right, so let's get into some topics.
Yeah.
Want to do some topics?
Let's do some topics.
Okay, so we got a couple on here, Maxie, that you sent. But we'll start with Dakota Fanning and Scarlett Johansson. And the reason that those names are kind of connected is because there's been this sort of...
loosely connected, by the way.
Loosely connected.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to get to why they are, which they really aren't. But there was this backlash with Scarlett Johansson somewhat recently because she has appeared in films. She was going to play, I believe, and please forgive me if I'm getting this wrong, she was going to play a transgendered person in an upcoming film.
Yeah.
And so there was a backlash saying, listen, if you're going to be playing a transgendered person, why not cast an actual transgendered person in the role? There's plenty of transgendered actors that could do that role, and they're missing out on roles, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So she ended up dropping out of the role. She was also in a film called The Ghost in the Shell, which is largely sort of based on Asian culture. That's its origins. So to cast sort of like, white American just felt very whitewashing. Whitewashing is a huge issue on the Twitter sphere and sort of in general, and people's sort of tastes for this have gone way down in the past couple years. Mm-hmm. So Scarlett, though, sort of pushed back and said, listen, I'm an actor. I can play... I should be able to play whoever I want. That's sort of part of being an actor. People did not like hearing that. They're like, you're missing the point about opportunities and people that don't get opportunities when you take these roles, et cetera, et cetera.
It's a fascinating conversation.
It is.
Yeah.
The reason Dakota Fanning's kind of in this conversation is because the other day someone took a picture of her, I believe, shooting, I don't know if it was in the streets of Toronto, but she's doing, she's playing, I believe, an Ethiopian woman.
Ethiopian Muslim woman.
But here's the thing. If you actually, did you read the whole piece on it?
Yeah, I did. Yeah.
So people saw just a still from this film where she's in, she's a Muslim in all of this garb. And they're like, have I lost my, am I in the Matrix? Somebody tweeted, they've now cast Dakota Fanning, a white girl, playing a Muslim. Mm-hmm. There's so many actors and actresses that could play this role, et cetera, et cetera. Dakota Fanning took to her Instagram and essentially said, listen.
It's a very thoughtful response.
Yeah, she's like, this is based on a book. The character I'm playing is a woman who was born in Britain, a white British woman who ends up over in this country.
In Africa, gets orphaned
and becomes she's raised a Muslim and then gets deported back to England, I suppose, but she's never known that life. So she's like, I'm not playing somebody of color. I'm playing
she's not playing like an African.
Yeah.
She's playing a British person.
Which leads to a bigger then the argument might be like, well, are we only going to get movies made about Muslims in foreign countries unless you have a white savior or someone that the white North American audience can connect to?
Yeah.
Anyway, why did you want to talk about whitewashing and the backlash to it, Maxie? Why did this hit the topics on the pod?
Well, I just find it's an interesting thing. Well, I've talked about this Scarlett Johansson thing with the band and with Lauren as well, about who's allowed to play what roles, and that's an interesting conversation in itself. So, for instance, Sean Penn played Harvey Milk. Sean Penn is not a gay guy, but the role I think was a really important one, and it was a story that needed to be told. And I think I don't want to speak for the gay community, but I think everybody's happy that his story was told, and it got the shine that a Sean Penn movie would get.
Right. What if Sean Penn came out and he's like, "Oh, I got drunk once and made out with a guy in college"? Would that help at all?
I think we got to cut that.
Why? It's just a conversation, though. Why would you have to cut that part? I'm just wondering.
Sure.
Because I think this issue is more about visual minorities than things you can't really tell about sexuality.
Well, I will say, though, that there is also a whole thing about straight actors taking gay roles instead of casting gay men in those roles.
It's presumed he's straight.
Yeah, well, okay, well, I think the question mark that I have in my mind is what are instances where, this is actually, the people who are unhappy with, the status quo, when is it actually something that's, a widespread feeling and that really, truly needs to be changed? And when is it just a couple people on Twitter commenting about it?
A vocal minority.
A vocal minority. Sure. And I think those things probably should be considered just when we're navigating progress, if that makes sense. And so Mike Pesca, who hosts The Gist, who's one of my favorite podcasters, he just tweeted an article on NBCnews.com. It says, Jennifer Aniston's dark skin tone, this is the headline of the article, on a magazine cover prompts criticism of InStyle. So there's a cover of Jennifer Aniston.
I saw this today.
You saw this? And
they've darkened her skin.
They've darkened her
essentially,
skin.
She doesn't look like Jennifer Aniston.
Yeah.
Let me see.
She kind of looks like Jennifer Aniston to me.
Well, the tweet I saw was like, and they said that there was never any black people on Friends.
Oh, sure.
To me, she looks like Cheryl Swoops.
See? So that's the thing. That's a WNBA player.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, so what did Pesca say?
Well, Pesca just said the sum total of the quote criticism cited in this article is one Instagram user. Literally a single Instagram user criticized it. NBC cited it in the subhead and then quoted the same random person in the body of the article. And that was it. So anyway,
I see what you're getting at.
Yeah,
so you're saying this news cycle was started by one person who had an issue with the shade of the color from the Photoshop.
Yeah, and someone at NBC put together
amplified
the voice. And by the way, sometimes you need a renegade journalist to be to bring an important thing to light, right? Like, totally. But then sometimes you're like, is this just one person that seems to be upset about it or wants to be kind of nitpicky, where 99% of the population literally has no problem with it? Or is it actually a bigger problem? And I related back to what we were talking about earlier with Shane, when I was like, Shane, we're going to have to cut it, or you sounded crazy about talking about this thing. There's something about your spiel at the end of the last episode where you're like, hot women love me, where I'm like, I don't know exactly what the problem is, but I wonder if like that could lead to, like, we're not big enough that there'd be like headlines about something you said, but like that could lead to us having to have a larger conversation about something. And it's just I just find I can't necessarily predict when things are going to be like actually like, oh, this is a widespread feeling that like needs to be addressed, or literally this is just like a couple people that want to really think about this issue and seem to get worked up about it a little bit, and 98% of the population goes, what? I don't really care. I'm going to carry on my day.
And I also can't affect who likes me.
Sure.
You know what I mean? So it's like, this is just, in my experience, women that are nines.
You said this. We get this.
Say nines? Like,
well, my wife's a 10, but I mean, the others were nines. It keeps getting better as I age.
No, we get it.
The women that like me are like fine wines.
Yeah.
They get better as I age.
These Blue Lobsters are really hitting us right now, guys.
Yeah, it's a fascinating conversation, because I know where you're coming from right now. You're saying like, who's driving the conversation of our society right now? And
by the way, I don't ever want to discount the people that are on the cutting edge of progress. Is the people that are like, no, this is unacceptable. There's something happening under the surface that is actually nefarious and not good and marginalizes people. It's like, and we need to address that. And so when we're talking about like roles in Hollywood, like when people are going, no, Scarlett Johansson should be playing, or we should make sure that someone who's actually transgender is playing that role. But then, yeah,
I think in a larger context where it comes from, because I'm like I always I'm fascinated by like the pulse of like sort of people as a whole. Like, what is it? Like, are we angry, or do we have an angst? Like, where does this come from? Like, why would it matter to somebody if Scarlett Johansson gets a transgendered role that a transgender person could play? So I ask myself, why does that matter? And I go, okay, I'm like, I get why it would matter to a certain section of people, so they'll say it. And then I go, but why does it catch fire? Like, why do enough people go, yeah, you know what, that is kind of fucked up. Like, if there's transgendered actors available, why is Scarlett Johansson getting it? Now, I could give you a business answer. I could say, well, Scarlett Johansson opens a film. She's actually, if you just want to cut down to sort of like the economics of it, and the reason people make films is to make movies, and Scarlett Johansson is a star who can open a film.
Or to make money.
To make money.
Yeah.
So that's one answer. That's like a sort of ice cold sort of monetary answer.
Yeah.
But the reason that people get so upset, to your question, Max, I think is because, and maybe I'm wrong, I don't know, is because people are tired of things being unfair. Mm-hmm. Life is incredibly unfair. And so I think they're tired of just, if it's like things are inequitable, or things are like sort of like, wait, why did that person get that and that person didn't? They want to get to the root of why it's happening and then try to correct it. Because all we do is go through life seeing somebody get a promotion that maybe we think doesn't deserve it, or somebody in your class in school is getting attention that you're like, why does that person get attention? Like, so many people sort of are feeling like, wait a second, this system is rigged, and all the same people keep getting this small amount of opportunities. How do we open it up, you know? And I think that's why people relate to when people get angry and they're like, wait a second, like, what about us? Because the us, I think, is a lot larger than the Scarlett Johanssons of the world. Yeah,
well, and the other thing that the internet seems to do is that it throws everything in one category. Because I did this. I was like, okay, Dakota Fanning and Scarlett Johansson, we kind of throw them in the same category of like...
You're throwing the Dakotas in the same category.
Yeah.
Johnson and Fanning.
But then you go... Okay, the Scarlett Johansson one maybe seems a little offside. The Dakota Fanning one seems a little more reasonable. I guess it was based on a book that did very well, that people seem to like that book. But then there's that extra question. It's like, if you're going to make a movie about Ethiopia, period, shouldn't it start with black people, not a white American?
Yeah, are those stories not as interesting unless you have a white lead?
Yeah.
And by the way, there's, I don't know the answer empirically to that question, because some people would say, well, no, because if we're trying to sell stuff in North America, this stuff sells, we have evidence. But then other people would say, well, you don't even know. People also used to say that black people couldn't open films. And then, or a black female-led film, and then Girls Trip does gangbusters, then they imitate a bunch of Girls Trip, and they're like, they never even tried before. Tyler Perry has a whole industry where people were like, yeah, we don't really want to do these kinds of movies.
And they kill.
And they kill.
Yeah.
R-rated female comedy in Bridesmaids, right? People are like, I don't know if we can make a raunchy, and then it's like someone does it well, and it's like, oh, it's not about whether it's like a man or woman or black or white or gay or straight or Asian or whatever, because look at Crazy Rich Asians. If it's good, it will do well. And so the people making the choices at the top, which is this more visceral thing, it's like, give opportunities for everybody to make these films, because maybe they can make really quality films. And by the way, they're going to make shitty films for a bit. White dudes have been making shitty films for literally 100 years.
Yeah.
And they got really good at it by the time. So it's like, well, of course, some of these comedies are going to be better, but it's like, let's make a couple shares. And now, again, this isn't my voice necessarily. I'm saying what I think the sort of temperature that I'm taking is. But I could be wrong. I could be misreading everything.
Well, the Dakota one, it's easy because a lot of Ethiopian actresses were probably hired for that role, just not as the lead. And she's playing the story that happened. It sounds like a very interesting story, but I wouldn't be picking on this movie as the movie that's not representing Ethiopian actresses. I think this is a movie that's probably helping that.
They picked the wrong fight.
That cause.
This was the wrong tree to try and cut down.
And Tyler Perry plays a woman in a lot of his movies.
He does a lot of
for comedic effect.
What's the point you're making?
Well, they should hire a woman, maybe.
That's an interesting counter.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? If we're anyway. That being said, it's like then we're getting into the heart of sort of comedy and can somebody dress up in drag for laughs? And,
sure,
et cetera, et cetera. But yeah, it's interesting. I feel like there's this. I feel like I'm sensing this thing in you that where you're getting a little bit more cranky these days, Max. About sort of the force of the voices that are sort of moving the narrative or driving the news cycle.
Yeah, I mean, I'd say my concern is my heroes and idols are people who, push forward and, fight for equality and do the right thing. And sometimes I worry that it's not going about it in the right way. And so sometimes when there's overreach, it's like, oh, we took 2 steps forward and now we're taking 3 steps back or whatever.
Yeah.
And so I just, in the enthusiasm and the zeal of people fighting the good fight, sometimes, we shoot ourselves in the foot a little bit. And I just want to make sure that it's we're not, that we're building bridges as opposed to taking people down. And sometimes I feel like the Twitter backlash can be,
impedes progress,
number one, and is somewhat mean-spirited, number two. And by the way, I totally acknowledge I'm a white privileged dude, so just if as a pragmatist, I just think about that angle a little bit. We're okay, how do we truly move the ball forward? But and by the way, as Nick Dyke on our band would say, sometimes you got to burn it down, sometimes you got to make enemies, sometimes heads will roll to get progress, and that's not necessarily my first instinct, but I also totally respect that too. And the heads will roll. It's like, you know what? Sure, we misstepped a little bit maybe with Dakota Fanning, but whatever. We need to be on the ball, and we got to be holding people accountable, and I appreciate that too.
But I feel like I don't know any Asian actresses besides Lucy Liu. I couldn't name another one in the world, and it feels like Ghost in the Shell might be a great opportunity for someone to star in a movie like that, and those opportunities are few and far between. So Scarlett Johansson, everybody knows. She has a million opportunities to do any film. It just doesn't feel like that film needs to star her.
Sure.
And the Ghost in the Shell was an established
franchise. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
Franchise. It didn't
necessarily need a big star to sell that movie.
Yeah. And by the way, I'm not defending Scarlett Johansson at all. It was more just a general thought.
But I'm just saying it could be warranted just because I don't know any transgendered actresses. There's not like there's the one from
Laverne Cox. From
Yeah,
Orange is the New
that's
Black.
the one I was just going to say. But there's not any really besides.
I'm blanking on her name, but from Euphoria.
Mm-hmm. Right, but that's what I mean. The name doesn't come to mind.
You're totally
easy.
right. Yep.
It's like Eddie Murphy. I was watching an interview where he said they let one black guy in at a time, or they let one main Asian actress in, or one transgender.
They can only
person.
let one hold that spot, the fame spot in
So
Hollywood.
if we can name the one, it's like there's plenty. There's Laverne Cox and the Euphoria one.
Well, for Asians, yeah, it was like Constance Wu was like a big one, and then Awkwafina now has this huge movie that everyone's talking about, like Oscar buzz. But like to your point, but I guess.
But that's what I mean. Lucy Liu's on her way out, and
opens a spot.
Yeah, no offense to Lucy, but I haven't heard anything since like Kill Bill, where she was really in a landmark film.
Sure.
And then Awkwafina's in this Oscar buzz film.
But I guess that's the reason that there's this sort of swell and this push is it's like, how do we open those spots? Like if Eddie's been talking about how that's been happening since like, the 60s, where it's like, well, it's going to be Red Fox or J.J. Walker, and then it's going to be Bill Cosby, or then Sidney Poitier gets to be then it's Denzel Washington. And it's like if Eddie's been talking about it for the last whatever, it's been happening for 60 years. It's like, how do you get past that?
But here's the way to create a public outcry in a way where companies are scared to do it because of the public outcry. So then when an opportunity like Ghost in the Shell comes along, they're like, yeah, I know we think Scarlett is going to create more box office, but let's not do that because it could actually create a negative impact. So let's actually use this perfect role for someone who's an up-and-coming Asian actress.
There's a story actually who one of our coworkers he just told me. So that film Lethal Weapon, it's a cop buddy movie, right? And so it stars Mel Gibson and Danny Glover, and they have the script and they're casting the film and they're bringing all these people in, and then they end up wanting to do Danny Glover, who's a black man, and I guess one of the producers was like, well, wait, like it's a white guy. And it's like, we never said in the script who the role was for. Like it's like you might be reading it that way because it's the voice in your head.
Oh, wow.
And then they end up casting Danny Glover. It becomes a massive hit. They make like 6 of them. But it's fascinating because there's actually a new movie out right now. And to Shane's point, it's like a movie like The Ghost in the Shell. You don't need Scarlett necessarily because it's going. Their fans are going to show up regardless if it's Scarlett Johansson. But maybe the financiers are like, well, Scarlett will bring non-fans because they'll bring Scarlett fans. Whatever. Got to sell tickets. But there's a film that Emma Thompson wrote with her husband that just is coming out in Christmas. It's starring Emilia Clarke, who plays Daenerys Targaryen in Game of Thrones. But it's a British rom-com in the sort of vein of any of these movies, like About a Boy.
Oh, yeah,
or
I think I've seen the
Notting Hill.
commercial. Did she get sick in it at some point?
Well, no, she's like, well, maybe. I mean, in the trailer, she's a very difficult person. I think she was sick at one point.
Yeah.
This is now she's like very hard to be around, but she ends up sort of like it's a meet cute. She falls in love with the lead. The lead is like an Asian Brit, I believe. I'm blanking on his name, but he also starred in that Steven Soderbergh film with Anna Kendrick and Blake Lively.
Oh yeah.
It ended up being a really good movie. My brother recommended it to me. But what I'm saying is, it's like he played Blake Lively's husband in that Steven Soderbergh
I remember,
film.
yep.
He's now the meet cute. He's like the guy you traditionally fall in love with. What I think is fascinating with that casting is they could easily cast name hot British actor. Like it could be Liam Hemsworth in that role. Easily. And that's who it traditionally was. I feel like when people speak up and they kind of make these things happen and people roll their eyes and like, oh, social justice warriors, blah, 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 blah. It's like, well, it leads to, after sort of like years of being vocal, this guy being cast in the role, and then people don't think it's weird. They go, yeah, of course she's going to fall in love with that guy. And what's great is then there's going to be a million sort of like Asian Brits or Asian Americans or Asian Canadians, and they're going to see that guy in the lead. They go, oh, like that's me.
Totally, and and that is the argument for the Nick Dykas of the world, and you kind of articulated Nick's argument. Is like sometimes you got to fight for stuff, and it might be uncomfortable in the moment, but 4 years later, that decision is being made, and everyone's probably better off for it.
Totally.
Yeah.
Want to keep it moving?
Let's keep it moving.
All right. So moving on to the next topic, Maxie, do you want to do Lana Del Rey versus the Critics, or what was the other one? I've got it on the list. I'm so bad.
And do you have any more Blue Lobster?
Yeah. Hold on, 1 second.
2. All right. Max is pouring a Blue Lobster into a glass, giving me the glass. Oh, I get the can.
So our next topic is, guys, I feel, before I get to this next topic, are our pods getting more loose? I feel like more people are engaging on social media. It feels like we're sort of like people are listening a lot. Mm-hmm. They're enjoying spending time with us. But do you feel like we're getting less tight? Is that a good thing?
I thought that segment was pretty good. I mean, it's a fine line between like how much sort of like fucking around are we doing versus how much are we talking as sort of pseudo pop culture experts on things? Because I feel like our listeners, on one hand, like hearing about our lives. Because when I listen to a podcast, if I'm listening to Tony Kornheiser, if I'm listening to Slate Political Gabfest, I like knowing what they're up to. But then also I tune in because I want their take on the news of the day.
Sure.
Yeah.
So I think it's like riding that line. It's like where you're not doing too much of one or the other. So I think we're in a good spot.
That makes sense.
Yeah. Does that make sense?
It makes sense to me. Shani, thoughts?
Well, I'm just always scared when we get into more serious topics that we could be boring people to death, and they're like, if I wanted to hear informed opinions, I'd read the New Yorker or something.
Sure.
You know what I mean? But
I feel like some people do like let us know if you like the topics that are a little bit more serious, where we have to kind of walk a little bit of a tightrope because we're very aware that we're three white guys, three very privileged white guys, like talking about, issues of social justice.
I'm part Indonesian.
Yeah, fair enough. I'm half Jewish. Shane?
4% Jew.
Is it really from your ancestry?
Yeah, I'm 4%.
Right, okay, cool. All right, well, I guess my question is just like, I think we need more maybe like fart segments or something.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well, that's
or sex
why
robots.
That's why segment 3 is going to be especially good. Whatever your segment is. Okay.
I'm in depression mode, man.
What?
I'm in depression mode.
Depression. That's fine. And maybe it'll be a sad segment. That's fine. But let's keep it moving.
Okay, cool. So this next segment is about Lana Del Ray. She has a new album coming out. What's it called?
It just came out. Norman fucking Rockwell.
That's what it is.
Yeah.
And there was a big story. And I mean, this is going to be sort of a segment that we're talking about criticism in general. But this became a story because Ann Powers of NPR, formerly of the LA Times, sort of, I don't even know if it was a scathing review. She reviewed the record and she was critical of it.
Yeah.
Lana Del Rey obviously read this thing and then got on her Twitter, and I should be reading it verbatim, but essentially, what would you say the sort of the vibe of it was like?
She just said, I did not connect to any of your criticism whatsoever.
Yeah.
It's like, I've never put on a persona, and I've given myself to the world 10 times over, and how dare you kind of thing. That's sort of
So what always happens whenever somebody lashes out at a critic? All the critics have come to this her defense, the critic's defense, being like, hey, this is like what criticism is about. You put it out, somebody writes a piece about it. A lot of, I think, artists are like, yeah, like, Lana, you're right. Like, you know what I mean? You put it out there, it is what it is. It's a fascinating
Which is funny, too, though, because this record is, besides for that one review, which I never heard of, everybody loves this record. And I know I went off on Jack Antonoff the other day, but me mostly being jealous of him, but also saying that his work with Taylor Swift isn't quite as good as I'd like it to be. I think he did an amazing job on this record because he worked with her there. But it just makes me think, it's like, I wish I was in LA going to parties, meeting Lana Del Ray, going, hey, I'm going to produce your record. Because apparently that's what happened. She was like, yeah, I just met him at a party. Then he was like, let's write a song right now. And then like we went back to my place and we wrote a song. And I was like, yeah, this guy's pretty cool. Like, let's do the whole record with him. So if I was living in LA, guys, that's what I'd be doing.
Yeah.
Just anyway. Back to the topic at hand.
Two blue lobsters, and we are getting loose. So, I mean, I guess the question is like...
Okay, sorry, my question.
Yeah.
This is why I bring it up. Is what difference does criticism, especially from the NPRs, the New York Times, the big publications, what does that mean in 2019? To
a creative, I think it means a lot.
When it comes to music specifically, and also movies and television. So those three popular art forms, because I find that often there's a disconnect between what a reviewer likes and what actually does well commercially, and vice versa. And sometimes things are critically lauded and also do really well commercially as well.
That's the sweet spot.
That
right?
is totally the sweet spot. But
like,
and my question
Titanic.
Why did everyone like that critically?
Titanic won Best Picture at the Oscars.
Oh shit! There you go.
And was the highest grossing film of all time until recently.
That's where you want to be. That is where you want to be. And do you think it's changed, in 2019 versus 20 years ago?
Well, now you just have a million critics, and if someone had a lot of followers and made fun of Lana's album, I'm sure she'd respond to that also. Because no one's more sensitive than a creative person, right?
Yeah.
So I like the fact that she responded that way, and she has the right to. Yeah. So nothing's wrong with that, and nothing's wrong with the way the critic critiqued it.
Mm-hmm.
What I think is interesting, to Max's point, is you see this a lot. Like, something will be 39% on Rotten Tomatoes from the critics, and then it will be 85% from like a whatever you call the fan score. right? And so it's like this is kind of always been the biggest sort of disconnect between critics and the common people. So it's like if an Adam Sandler movie makes $150 million, right? But the critics say, oh, that movie is a huge piece of shit. Who are the critics to say that movie's a huge piece of shit? Because ultimately, a democracy is the people decide, and enough people decided we love that film.
Same thing with every Will Ferrell movie that came out in the 2000s, which were massive hits.
Yeah.
They got killed. Critics.
So at that point, it's like, who are the critics speaking for? Like, are they speaking for the people?
Well, they're speaking on behalf of. They've seen thousands and thousands of films, way more films than anyone else has.
Do you think you lose some perspective though, on just like?
No, how many times have you seen a film that you're like, that was a huge piece of shit, and then 2 years later you catch it and you're like, this is actually good. That critic was right. And I was wrong, but now I've gained a little perspective.
Sure.
That critic seems a little ahead of their time. Because it's like their brain is so finely tuned to spot the little things the little nuances that make a film great. Like a Radiohead song might not feel good on its first listen.
The other thing, though, I'd add to that, I don't disagree with that, is that I'd say that the personality type that is attracted to being a critic is a certain kind of person, generally speaking. And I always think about this with a lot of music critics. They're often guys in their late 30s and love the Replacements and wear plaid shirts and have beards. And so like any new band that comes out that sounds a little bit like the Replacements, like they will love that band. And it's probably similar to the personality type of many movie reviewers. And I'm painting with broad strokes here, but it's like they probably went to a liberal arts college. They probably grew up upper middle class. Anyway, so they're just a certain kind of person that they have a particular set of tastes.
Right. It's like I guess.
Yeah, because I don't think the guy who likes the Replacements has like more refined tastes than the guy who's really into hip hop or the guy that's really into another kind of rock or pop music necessarily. I know, and I think the good reviewers, can appreciate a lot of different kinds of things and have like nuanced opinions on a lot of different genres. But I just find sometimes it's like, the other thing I put in our text group about the difference between the reviews for the Dave Chappelle special and the difference versus the Nanette special.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And do you want to describe that?
Yeah, so essentially, like, if somebody tweeted, like, a screen grab, and Nanette, which was Hannah Gadsby, that stand-up special is, like, adored. It's lauded by critics. It's something like 99% on Rotten Tomatoes.
100%.
100%. And I can't remember what the audience score was.
Like 55 or something.
It was
low.
low.
It's lower than that. It's like 33
might have been
or something.
30s. So the audience score was, like, people didn't necessarily connect with it on, like, this is a hilarious comment. I don't know why people didn't connect with it on the audience score.
Because it's too original. It's revolutionary.
Sure. So that's one argument. And then the Dave Chappelle special, which has been completely sort of like, it's been written about ad nauseum. It was very controversial. It was very provocative, obviously by design. It's the exact opposite, basically. Critics were like, this is either him repeating a lot of his past stuff or it's him being provocative for provocative sake. He's using language that is obviously like
inappropriate,
sort of incite, and this is just, it's stale for him at this point. So it was low critic score, audience score through the roof.
Because audiences want to love him also.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. I tend to agree with those reviews.
With the reviews or the audience?
I tend to agree with the reviewers.
Oh, interesting.
That Nanette was, like, totally mind-blowing. And the Dave Chappelle thing was like, okay, this has, like, been done to death, this material.
Oh, really? I haven't watched the Nanette special, so I can't
it's amazing. It's amazing.
But I love the Chappelle special.
Fascinating.
Did you like we talked about the Chappelle special.
Like, I can understand someone laughing out loud very hard at the Chappelle special.
I laugh so much at that Chappelle special. Mike, what do you think of it?
Yeah, so like, is he amazing at what he does? Does he have command of the stage? Like Shane said, does he control the crowd? Is he funny? Yeah, he's fucking funny. He's very funny. And some of those bits were like really good. And some of the bits are like, why is he going? Like, why is he doing this? And it just felt like, okay, like he just wants people to write all the pieces that people wrote after he did the special. Potentially, I can't get in his head. I don't know, but I do know that like probably a lot of the language would be super hurtful if you're in one of those marginalized groups.
I think the point I think I've just arrived at, based on this topic and the previous one, is that I just have some apprehension over like people like that went to Ivy League schools that are on Twitter dictating the conversation. Where it's like if you ask members of the Hispanic community or the Black community or any other minority community, It's like what they feel. It's like I never hear those voices or as much as just people from a certain class, and that, and oftentimes I agree with them fully, but it just makes me like a little uncomfortable just to be like, okay, whatever you said, because you are incredible at using words. You went to debate class.
Yeah.
You've written a bunch of great fucking essays in university, and you know how to articulate an argument that's the right answer, and that makes me uncomfortable.
But it's easy to dismiss those people on that basis also.
No, I'm not. Yeah. By the way, I'm not dismissing it. I say this as someone who agrees with those people 97% of the time. But it's interesting. You read these polls where it's like, if you would actually poll members of minority communities, they don't even agree with the thing that the white person is saying in their defense. So some like smart liberal arts guy or some Ivy League educated person goes, actually, blah, blah, blah. And then you ask a bunch of people from the African American community, and they go, what? That's not how we feel. That's sort of what I'm getting.
But it's like with food. It's like, I love McDonald's hamburgers. I will acknowledge it's not high quality food. So if a food critic was like, oh, all these billions of people love McDonald's hamburgers, but actually here is a great, masterful hamburger at this very pretentious restaurant, I'd be like, okay, I acknowledge that is probably the superior burger. But me, with my taste, I prefer McDonald's, even though I acknowledge that's probably the better cut of meat and the better burger overall, if I ever even take the time to acquire a taste for that burger, which I probably won't. It's like everyone loves Britney Spears. I'm not a fan of Britney Spears.
Whoa. Let's not get too controversial.
I know. I'm just saying people understand it when it's music or food easier than when we're talking about something like an Adam Sandler film or Dave Chappelle versus Nanette.
Sure.
Nanette's more... It's so different that it's harder to get into, and people are like, this Nanette special ain't no comedy, but really it is comedy, and it's very funny. And I found it odd that so many people were saying it wasn't even funny. They're like, no, it's just some woman complaining the entire time. No, it's not that. It's actually it's some of the jokes take longer to get to, and they're more based in a serious reality. But it is still funny. I still thought it was comedy. It wasn't just like this one man show. And then, what's his name? What's the other guy? Neil Brennan.
Yeah.
Did 3 mics.
Yeah, that was good.
And everyone's like, yeah, that one's good, though. That one's comedy. That one I get.
But it's in like the same playground.
He copied Nanette. Like, he was clearly inspired by that. And he's like, oh, I'm going to do different. I found his even heavier than Nanette in some ways. So it's very interesting.
Well, it's funny though, but like to get to this point, it's like about people's tastes. Harry Styles speaks about this kind of. Critics are they might know how like a song is supposed to be constructed, whatever that means, or what good lyrics are, whatever that means. And like a movie critic might know, well, this is a superior film, and they can explain why it's a superior film, and the construct of film and all that stuff. But ultimately, it's like majority rules. So it's like if an Adam Sandler movie makes you laugh, it's like, who's to tell those people they don't have good taste? Like Harry, getting back to Harry Styles, it's like he always talks about teenage girls. He's like, there's no pretension. If they like something, they like something. They're the most honest audience.
It's not to say they don't have good taste. Just because you like a McDonald's hamburger is not to say you don't have good taste. And you might be like, my first beer I thought was disgusting. It's saying, give this thing a try that you might not normally. Because if you give it a little bit of a closer look, you might see the beauty in it. And that's all the critics are there for, because much like a sommelier or someone who's good with anything that has so much specificity to it, you might appreciate it a little more. So when I'm drinking wines and someone's telling me it's a great wine, I just chug it down like I would do anything. I don't give a shit. But after time, if I do it enough, I might begin to appreciate the beauty within it. You know what I mean?
I do, yeah. But what about the negative criticism? Because that's what people don't like. It's like, I don't want you to tell me why a Jonas Brothers album isn't good. Don't tell me my taste is bad. I like it.
But that's why the critic's there. That's why the job exists. So you can't only just have like confirmation bias and hear what you want to hear.
Right.
But I love that Lana Del Ray fought against it, because a true creative, like if I show you an edit at work, right, and I ask you for your advice, and you rip it apart, I'm like, I just wanted you to say it was good, Mike.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like when you show me a song, part of you,
just like, yo, it's a banger.
You want me to be critical, but you're like, no, I know this is amazing. Just tell me what I want to hear. And then after you hear the stuff that kind of hurts you, you go back and you listen to it again, and you're like, oh, there was a seed of truth into what that harsh critic said, and I can make it good now.
Yeah.
It just sucks when you can't do anything about it.
So, Shane's surprise. We're here.
Oh yeah, Chick-fil-A. I just want to talk about
Oh, good. I mean, I was hoping I was actually going to bring this up at the top.
Yeah, this is my like bullshit grab off something you had put in the group just because I'm not feeling good right now. I had kind of tricked you. I think you actually believed that I went into Chick-fil-A today.
Oh, yeah.
Because there was, I guess manager Ash put a photo of a bunch of people protesting outside, and I had said in our group, oh, I thought it was a lineup for Chick-fil-A, but it turns out it was just a bunch of protesters, so I got my sandwich no problem. But I, in fact, did not get
Where is it, by the way?
I don't know.
Okay.
But I was just joking, and then I said, oh, if these people had tasted this sandwich, I think they'd change their tune. But of course, like, I don't even fully know the backstory. I guess the people who own it, I'm assuming...
Very religious. They're not open on Sundays, and they've donated a lot of money to causes that are anti-gay.
Right.
Yeah.
They're homophobes.
So I guess my question to you guys is, not that I believe even if it was reversed, you'd be honest, but would you stop doing something you loved if it was because like somebody was like homophobic
or like poor
racist?
taste? I mean, it's like, would you stop watching Woody Allen movies? Like, there's. I feel like we're addressing a lot of these kinds of questions, like in 2019.
Let's say all pornography was homophobic.
That's funny.
But except for gay porn.
Well, you make do with what you have.
Mike on Much can be found on Twitter and Instagram at Mike on Much. You can subscribe to the show on any platform that has podcasts. Spotify, do it.